The music was still playing when my daughter hugged her stepmom before hugging me at her wedding, and then she leaned in and whispered something that made both of us go still like statues. I felt the words hit my chest harder than any slap, and when I looked up, I saw the same shock flash across her stepmom's face, like we had both just been pushed off a cliff at the same time. I opened my mouth to speak, but my daughter pulled away, smiling for the cameras, and I knew that whatever she had just said was only the beginning. Stay with me until the end of the story. Like, subscribe, and follow because what happened next changed every life in that room. Before that day, before the white dress and the flowers and the lies wrapped in smiles, my life was quiet in a way that hurt. My name is Rachel, and for most of my adult life, I was invisible in my own family. I married Daniel when I was 24.
He was kind then.
Or maybe I was just young and wanted to believe he was. We had one child, our daughter Emily, and for a few years, I thought I had won at life. I stayed home with Emily. I packed her lunches. I read her stories at night. I kissed her scraped knees and told her monsters were not real. Then Daniel started coming home late. At first, he said it was work. Then he stopped explaining it all. The night he told me he was leaving, he did not shout. He did not cry. He sat at the kitchen table and said, "I'm not happy, Rachel." That was it. No fight. No reason I could hold and break into pieces to understand. 3 months later, he married Laura. Laura was everything I was not. She wore heels like they were part of her body. Her hair always shined. She spoke softly, but people leaned in when she talked. When Emily came back from weekends with her dad, she would talk about Laura's house. The big rooms.
The pool.
The way Laura let her stay up late. I told myself it did not matter. I was her mother. Love would win. I was wrong. As Emily grew older, she grew farther from me. When she was 15, she asked if she could live with her dad for school reasons. Daniel had moved to a better district. That is what they said. I signed the papers with shaking hands, telling myself it was only temporary. After that, I saw my daughter less and less. Phone calls became texts. Texts became silence. Laura started posting pictures online. Emily in matching dresses with her. Emily smiling at fancy dinners. Emily hugging Laura with both arms, like she was afraid to let go. Every picture felt like a small death. I tried to talk to Daniel once. I told him I felt pushed out. He sighed and said, "You're being dramatic, Rachel." That was the last real conversation we ever had. Years passed like that. Quiet. Lonely. Heavy. Then one afternoon I got the call. "Mom," Emily said, her voice bright. "I'm engaged." I cried right there on the couch. I told her I was happy. I told her I loved her. And for a moment, I thought maybe this was the start of us again. The wedding planning was handled mostly by Laura. She sent me polite messages. Short ones.
Dates. Times.
No feelings. No warmth. I was invited, but I was not needed. On the day of the wedding, I stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized myself. I wore a simple blue dress. Nothing flashy. Nothing that could be called a mistake. I wanted to disappear and still be there at the same time. The venue was beautiful. White chairs.
Soft lights.
Flowers everywhere. I saw Daniel laughing with guests like nothing had ever broken in his life. Laura looked perfect.
Of course she did.
When Emily walked down the aisle, I felt my heart crack open. She was so beautiful it hurt. For a second, she looked at me. Just for a second. I held my breath. Then she looked away. After the vows, after the applause, after the tears, it was time for hugs. She hugged her father first. Long and tight. Then she turned to Laura. The room seemed to slow down as Emily wrapped her arms around her stepmom. Laura smiled, already crying. People around them sighed and dabbed their eyes. I waited. My hands shook. Then Emily leaned in closer to Laura's ear and whispered something. I was close enough to see Laura's smile fall. Just for a blink. Her eyes widened. Her body went stiff. Emily pulled back and walked toward me. She hugged me next. Her arms felt familiar, but different. Older. Stronger. She leaned into my ear and whispered the same words. I know what you did, she said. My knees almost gave out. I pulled back, trying to read her face, but she was already smiling again, turning to greet someone else. Like she had not just dropped a bomb into my chest. I looked at Laura across the room. She was staring at me. Not with kindness. Not with pity. With fear. And that was when I knew this wedding was not just a celebration. It was a stage. And my daughter had just lit the first match. As the guests laughed and music filled the air again, my phone buzzed in my hand. A message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. It was a photo. And in that moment, before I even opened it, I understood something terrible was about to come out, something that would burn every lie to the ground. My heart raced as I stared at the screen, the noise of the wedding fading into nothing, and I realized this was no longer about love or family. This was about revenge. The photo on my phone stayed unopened for a long second, like it was daring me to look. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone onto the white tablecloth. Around me, people were laughing, glasses were clinking, and the band was starting another happy song. No one noticed that my whole world had just tilted. I finally tapped the screen. The photo filled my phone, and my breath caught in my throat. It was an old picture. Very old. I could tell because Emily was small in it, maybe 5 years old. She was asleep on a couch, her hair spread over a pillow. Standing beside her was Laura, but she did not look warm or loving in the photo. She was holding a phone in one hand and a stack of papers in the other. The next image came right after. Those papers were legal papers, custody papers. My stomach twisted. Another message came in. She never wanted to be your friend. She wanted to replace you. I looked up fast, my eyes searching the room. Laura was standing near the bar now, talking to 2 women. She laughed at something they said, but her hand was tight around her glass. Too tight. Emily was across the room with her new husband, smiling, glowing, like nothing was wrong. I felt dizzy. I moved toward an empty hallway, away from the noise, away from the music. My heels clicked loudly on the floor, and each step felt like I was walking deeper into a place I could not escape. Another message buzzed. Check your email. The one you stopped using. My heart started pounding harder. There was only one old email I had stopped using. The one I shared with Daniel when we were married. I leaned against the wall and opened my phone. There it was. Dozens of unread emails. My chest felt tight as I opened the first one. It was from Laura. Sent years ago. Before Daniel even filed for divorce. She had written to a lawyer. She talked about me like I was already gone. Like I was a problem to be removed. She is weak. She will not fight. The child will bond with me if I am patient. Tears filled my eyes, but I kept reading. Another email talked about small plans. Things I remembered but never understood at the time. Missed school notes. Events I was not told about. Little moments where Emily slowly slipped away from me. It was not an accident. It was a plan. My knees slid down the wall, and I sat on the floor, my dress pooling around me. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. I thought I was a bad mother. I thought I failed. But I was pushed.
Used.
Replaced. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. I looked up fast. It was Laura. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, blocking the exit. The soft wedding music was now only a faint sound through the thick walls. Her face was pale. Her eyes were sharp. "Did you get the message?" she asked quietly. I stood up slowly, holding my phone tight. "What did you do?" I asked. My voice was low, but it shook. She laughed once. A short, broken laugh. "You always were dramatic, Rachel." I stepped closer. "You took my child." Her smile faded. "I raised her," she snapped. "I was there when you disappeared into your sadness." "I disappeared because you were cutting me out," I said. "You planned it." She looked away for half a second. "That was all I needed." "You don't know everything," she said. "Emily chose me." The door opened suddenly. Emily stood there. Both of us turned toward her. The hallway felt too small. Too tight. Emily looked calm.
Too calm.
I see you both got the message, she said softly. Laura's voice trembled. Emily, sweetheart.
Don't, Emily said.
One word. Sharp as glass.
She looked at me.
Mom, I'm sorry it took me so long. My throat closed. You knew. She nodded. I found the emails last year. Dad never deleted them. Laura's face drained of color. Emily stepped closer to her. You thought I wouldn't understand. You thought I was just a child. I loved you, Laura whispered. Emily's eyes filled with tears. You loved winning. Silence fell between us. Then Emily took a deep breath and said, That photo? That was just the beginning. Laura's head snapped up. What do you mean? Emily turned to me. Mom, I didn't invite you here just to watch me get married. My heart started racing again. Emily, what are you saying? She looked back at Laura, her voice steady and cold. Everyone is about to know who she really is. Laura lunged forward. You can't do this. Emily stepped back. You should have thought about that years ago. At that moment, the wedding coordinator knocked on the door. Everything okay? It's time for the speeches. Emily smiled. Perfect timing. She opened the door and walked out, leaving Laura and me alone. Laura grabbed my arm hard. You won't enjoy this, she hissed. If I go down, you go down too. I pulled my arm free. I already went down. You just didn't care. We followed Emily back into the hall. The lights dimmed slightly as the guests settled into their seats. Daniel stood near the front, holding a microphone, smiling like the proud father of the bride. Emily took the microphone from him gently. Before we continue, she said, her voice clear and sweet, I want to share something special. Something from my childhood. A screen behind her lit up. My breath stopped. The first image appeared. It was the same photo Laura had tried to hide. Gasps filled the room. Laura froze beside me, her hand flying to her mouth. Emily turned slightly and looked straight at her stepmom. And then the next image began to load, slowly filling the screen, revealing something far worse than the first. I felt the room hold its breath as the truth started to unfold. The image finished loading, and the room went silent. It was a video. Not shaky. Not unclear. It was clean, steady, and impossible to deny. Laura was sitting at a table, years younger, speaking calmly into a camera. Papers were spread in front of her. My name was written on the top page in bold letters. I just need her to look unstable, Laura said in the video. If she misses a few school events, forgets a few forms, it will be enough. Judges like calm mothers. I can be calm. A sound came from the crowd. A sharp breath. Then another. I felt my chest tighten, so hard I thought I might fall. Daniel stepped forward. What is this? He asked, his voice cracking. Emily did not look at him. She kept her eyes on the screen. The video continued. I'll encourage the distance, Laura said. Children adjust. She'll forget Rachel with time. My knees went weak. This was not just betrayal. This was theft. People started whispering. Loudly. Chairs shifted. Someone said, Oh my God. Daniel turned slowly toward Laura. His face was pale. Is this real? He asked. Laura's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Emily finally spoke. I found it on an old flash drive in Dad's office. Labeled backup. Daniel staggered back like he had been hit. I didn't know, he said. Emily, I swear I didn't know. Emily looked at him then. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was firm. You didn't ask. The screen changed again. This time, it showed emails.
Dates. Times.
Messages sent during my darkest years. One email glowed in red. She cried again today.
Good.
Keep pushing. A woman near the front covered her mouth. Someone else stood up. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My hands were numb. My heart was screaming. Laura suddenly moved. She rushed toward the stage. Turn it off, she shouted. This is private. Two men stepped in front of her, blocking her way. Emily raised her hand. Let her see, she said quietly. Laura turned toward me then. Her eyes were wild. You are weak, she screamed. You let it happen. I took a step forward without thinking. You planned it, I said. I trusted you. She laughed, sharp and ugly. You lost her because you didn't fight. Emily slammed her hand on the podium. The sound echoed through the hall.
Stop, she said.
Laura froze. Emily's voice shook now, but she did not stop. I was a child. I didn't know why my mom stopped calling so much. I didn't know why my phone disappeared for weeks. I didn't know why letters never arrived. She turned to the guests. She blocked them. A man shouted, "Is that true?" Laura screamed, "I was protecting her." Emily shook her head. You were protecting yourself. The screen changed again. This time it was a recording of a phone call. Laura's voice filled the room. If Rachel breaks down, custody is guaranteed, the voice said. I felt something inside me finally snap. I walked up beside my daughter. Emily reached for my hand. That small touch healed something that had been broken for years. Daniel dropped into a chair, his face in his hands. The room was chaos now. People were talking over each other. Phones were out. Videos were being recorded. Laura backed away slowly, shaking her head. You don't understand, she whispered. I did this for us. Emily looked at her with tears streaming down her face. There was never an us. Laura turned and ran. She pushed through the crowd, knocking over a chair, and headed for the exit. For a moment I thought it was over. Then a loud voice rang out from the back of the hall. Police! Stop right there. Laura froze mid-step. Two officers walked in, calm and steady. One of them held up a folder. We have a warrant, he said. Laura Mitchell, you are being investigated for fraud, evidence tampering, and interference with parental custody. The room exploded with noise. Laura screamed. Daniel looked up, horror on his face. Emily squeezed my hand tighter. As the officer stepped toward Laura and reached for her arms, she turned her head slowly and locked eyes with me. And in that moment she smiled. Not scared, not broken, smiling. Because whatever was coming next, she clearly believed she still had one last move to make. Laura's smile stayed on her face as the officers took her by the arms. It was not the smile of someone defeated. It was the smile of someone who believed the story was not finished. As they led her away, she twisted her head toward Emily. You think this makes you brave, she said. You think this fixes what you broke? Emily did not answer. I watched Laura disappear through the doors, her heels clicking like a countdown. The sound stayed in my head long after she was gone. The room was a mess. People were standing, talking, arguing. Some guests were crying. Others were filming. The wedding that was supposed to be perfect had turned into something no one would ever forget. Daniel finally stood up. He looked older than I had ever seen him. His shoulders were bent, like the weight of years had dropped on him all at once. I didn't know, he said again, louder this time, like saying it enough might make it true. Rachel, I swear. I looked at him, really looked at him. This man had shared my life, my bed, my child. And still, he had not seen me at all. You didn't know, I said slowly, because you didn't want to. Emily stepped between us. Dad, she said, today is not about you. Her voice was calm, but firm. I had never heard her sound like that before. Not as a child. Not as a teenager. She sounded like a woman who had already decided who she was. She turned to the guests. I'm sorry you had to see this, she said. But lies grow when they stay hidden. I didn't want my marriage to start with one. There was a long silence. Then her husband, Mark, stepped forward. He took her hand without hesitation. We're still getting married, he said. Emily looked at him, surprised. After all this? He nodded. Especially after this. That was a high moment. A small one but strong. The room seemed to breathe again. The coordinator cleared her throat. We can take a short break, she said carefully. People slowly began to move, whispering as they went. Some came up to me. Some hugged me. Some said they were sorry. I accepted it all quietly, like someone who had already cried all her tears. Emily pulled me aside into a quiet room. She closed the door and turned to me. For a moment, she just stared. Then she broke down. I'm so sorry, Mom, she sobbed, burying her face in my shoulder. I didn't know. I didn't know for so long. I held her tight. You're here now, I whispered. That's what matters. She pulled back and wiped her face.
There's more, she said.
My heart sank. More what? She took a breath. Laura didn't act alone. I felt the air leave my lungs. What do you mean? Emily looked down. Dad helped. Not at first, but later. The room started to spin. Helped how? She didn't tell him everything, Emily said. But he signed things. He agreed to moves. He stayed quiet when I said I didn't hear from you. I closed my eyes. Another wound.
Deeper this time.
He knew I was being erased, I said. Emily nodded. And he let it happen. There was a knock at the door. Mark stepped in, his face serious. The police want to talk to you both, he said.
Now.
Emily stiffened. About Laura? Mark hesitated. About Dad, too. The world felt unreal as we walked down the hallway. Daniel was sitting in a chair, his hand shaking. An officer stood beside him. Rachel, Daniel said when he saw me. Please. I stopped a few steps away. What now? The officer spoke. We've reviewed the materials shown today, he said. And additional evidence provided earlier this week. Emily looked at me. Earlier this week? I nodded slowly. I didn't send the first message, I said. I didn't know who did. The officer continued. We believe Laura was not the only one involved in interference. Mr. Carter, he nodded at Daniel, may it be charged as well. Daniel's face collapsed. No, he whispered. I just followed advice. I didn't think. You never do, I said quietly. Emily's hands balled into fists. You let her destroy my mother, she said. And you let me believe she didn't love me. Daniel started crying. Loud, broken sounds. I felt nothing. That scared me more than anger ever could. The officer asked Emily and me a few questions, then left us alone again. The wedding resumed in a quieter way. Smaller. Realer. Emily married Mark with only close friends around. I stood in the front row. When she said her vows, she looked straight at me. I promise to protect truth, she said. Even when it hurts. I cried then. Hard. After the ceremony, Emily pulled me aside once more. Mom, she said, there's one last thing. I looked at her. What? She took out her phone and showed me a message thread. The name at the top made my blood run cold. Laura Mitchell, 5 minutes ago. The message read, You think you won. Check your mother's house. My heart started pounding. What does that mean? I asked. Emily's face was pale. I don't know, but she sent it after she was arrested. I grabbed my purse. We're leaving. Now. As we rushed toward the parking lot, my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered without thinking. A calm voice spoke. Rachel, the voice said. This is Detective Harris. You need to turn around. Why? I asked, my voice shaking. There's been an incident, he said. At your home. My chest tightened. What kind of incident? He paused. Then he said the words that made my knees almost give out. Your house is on fire. The words echoed in my head as if the world had stopped moving. My house is on fire. Emily grabbed my arm. What did he say? She asked, panic rising in her voice. I swallowed hard. They say my house is burning. Mark didn't wait. He was already pulling out his car keys. We're going. Now. The drive felt endless and too fast at the same time. Sirens screamed in the distance, and with every mile closer to my street, my chest tightened more. That house was not fancy. It was not big, but it was where I cried alone, where I waited for phone calls that never came, where I kept every birthday card Emily ever made for me. When we turned onto my street, bright red lights filled the night. Fire trucks, police cars, neighbors standing in clusters, whispering. Smoke rose into the dark sky like a bad dream. I pushed the car door open before it fully stopped. Rachel, a firefighter shouted. Stay back. But my legs kept moving. My house was still standing, but flames were crawling out of the back windows. Water sprayed everywhere. The smell of smoke burned my nose and throat. Emily held on to me, shaking. Who would do this? She cried. I already knew. Detective Harris walked toward us. His face was tight. We got here fast, he said. The fire was set in the kitchen. Accelerant was used.
Set.
Not an accident. She did this, I whispered. Laura. Harris nodded.
We believe so.
We found messages on her phone sent just before the fire started. Emily covered her mouth. She was in police custody.
She made a call, Harris said.
One call was all she needed. My knees buckled, and Mark caught me before I hit the ground. As firefighters finally put the flames out, I felt hollow. Like the last safe place I had was gone. Hours later, they let me walk inside. The walls were black. The floor was soaked. Smoke damage was everywhere. The kitchen was destroyed. I stood there in silence. Then I saw it. A metal box on the living room shelf. Burned on the outside, but still closed. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were old photos. Letters.
Cards.
Emily's drawings.
Saved.
I fell to my knees and cried harder than I had all day. Emily knelt beside me. She didn't take everything, she whispered. No, I said. She didn't. The next morning, the news exploded. Laura's arrest. The wedding video. The fire. Daniel was taken in for questioning again. This time, he did not walk out freely. Emily stayed with me at a hotel. She barely slept. Neither did I. That afternoon, Detective Harris called again. We searched Laura's storage unit, he said. We found more evidence. My stomach twisted. What kind? Diaries, he said. Recordings. And something else. What? I asked. She was planning to leave the country, he said. And she left instructions. I closed my eyes. Instructions for what? Harris's voice lowered. For what to do if she was ever exposed. Emily looked at me, fear in her eyes. Mom? I put the phone on speaker. What kind of instructions? I asked. There was a pause. Revenge, Harris said. My heart started pounding again. Then Emily's phone buzzed. She looked down at the screen and went pale. Mom, she whispered. What is it? I asked. She turned the phone toward me. It was a message. From a private account with no name. One short sentence. You saved your mother. Now it's time to pay. And before I could even breathe, there was a knock at the hotel room door. The knock at the hotel door was slow, deliberate, and it sent a chill down my spine. Emily clutched my hand tightly. Mom, what now? I swallowed, my voice barely steady. We find out. I cautiously opened the door. No one was there. Just a small envelope on the floor. I picked it up, hands trembling. It was heavy, thick, and unmarked. No return address. Emily peered over my shoulder. Open it, she whispered. I tore it open. Inside was a single flash drive. And a note, written in familiar handwriting. This is just the beginning. You think the fire scared me? Wait until you see what I've left behind. My stomach dropped. Laura had been meticulous. Even from jail, she had left traps, secrets, threats, carefully crafted like a spider spinning a web. Emily's eyes were wide. Mom, what does she mean? I held the flash drive tight. I don't know, but I'm not afraid anymore. The next morning, after the hotel staff had cleared the area and we were alone, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. A folder opened. Inside were files, financial statements, emails, photographs, recordings. Everything Laura had tried to cover up. Everything she had planned. And at the top, a video file titled, For Rachel and Emily. I clicked it. Laura appeared on the screen, smirking even though the prison walls behind her were cold and gray. I see you survived, she said. You think the fire was the end? That you can escape me? Emily gasped. She recorded this in prison? Laura continued, her eyes dark and calculating. All these years, I taught you to be weak. But you're not. Rachel, you survived. Emily, you listened. And now you can finish what I started. The camera shifted. Documents, maps, hidden accounts, passwords, every tool she had left for chaos. And one folder labeled Exposed. Emily looked at me. Mom, what is she planning? I looked back at her, my daughter, the girl I almost lost, the woman she had become. And I realized something. Laura had underestimated us. She had underestimated the bond she tried to destroy. She had underestimated me. And most of all, she had underestimated Emily. I closed the laptop. She thinks this is power, I said. But it's not. This is our chance. Our moment. Emily nodded. We can take control. I smiled, a slow, steady smile.
Yes.
And when we do, Laura will see what it means to underestimate a mother and her daughter. For the first time in years, I felt fire, not the kind that destroys, but the kind that fuels. The kind that sharpens every nerve and hones every thought. Laura had set the stage, but she was the one trapped in her own web. And we were about to cut the strings. The wedding, the betrayal, the fire, the threats. All of it had led to this moment. I took Emily's hand. Are you ready? She nodded. Her eyes were fierce, determined,
Alive.
Then let's finish this, I said. And in that moment, I knew the end of her plans would be the beginning of our revenge. We were no longer victims. We were unstoppable. And Laura was about to pay.